which I'm quite passionate about, Chris. I don't know if you...
Well, look, I've indulged in many a bag of crisp with you.
Many a bag.
My thing about Monster Munch is, okay, obviously, like, quintessentially British flavour with the pickled onions, right? But it's not like your wartime Twiglets, for example, which, let's be honest, are disgusting.
Twiglets are disgusting.
Marmite, whack.
They are arse.
Crisps in the form of small twigs, bizarre concept. I understand them trying to be different.
Two things. Have you ever had Takis? Because they're shaped like twigs and they taste like sex.
Yeah, well, it's just E numbers though, isn't it? It's just MSG and dopamine straight to the dome, like, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
I wish sex was that good. You know what I mean?
Sex doesn't last as long as a pack of Takis.
No, and you don't have to apologise afterwards.
I have a story about Twiglets. This is so funny. I wasn't expecting you to bring this on, and I haven't thought about this in years. But
dear.
like quintessential African family that does not celebrate Halloween.
Yeah.
We had trick-or-treaters coming around when we were like 10 or 11, and my uncle was over from Nigeria, and my parents were like, just ignore them, we're not doing
Yeah.
And he was like, no, but they've dressed up, they've come to the door, like, what do we have in to give these kids?
Yeah.
We were like, we've not got any sweets. So he gets a pot of Twiglets and he gives them each like an individual Twiglet to go. I was like, we're gonna get egged.
Oh,
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Resting Place podcast. I am Dapo Agiri, and as you can see, carnage has already ensued. I am here with my boy Jimmy Doinks, aka James Doe, one of my very good friends. We've known each other far too long now, haven't we?
Yeah, what's it been? 16 years?
16
years.
17
It was that run of like fifth form up until the end of sixth form where we just had every single class together. And they were like, oh, well, at least we're not seeing each other anymore. Oh, wait, same degree, same university.
Yeah. Same fucking Spanish speaking.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Oh, let's all both go to South America, shall we?
Yeah.
Well, Central.
Yeah, I had to keep some sort of distance, to be fair.
I did the numbers. I think we had a class together, at least one class together every year since like year 7.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Up until we graduated. That's fucking insane.
And then COVID hit, and it's like, oh, we can't leave our house, so at least we won't see each other much, and then proceeded to go to Nathan's house most weekends.
Yeah, the mansions in Thornton Heath.
Adhering to the rules, obviously.
We were a bubble.
We were a bubble, yeah. We've been in the same bubble since year 7.
Yeah, we share one bubble. James has been chewing my ear off to cover this podcast for far too long. And I just gave in, to be honest.
That's sales for you, baby.
This is your... Fuck, we worked together. Oh, God. That's so bad. And now he's auditioning for my podcast.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Insane.
Co-host.
VRPs is what we call them.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, we're trying to figure out what the R stands for, because obviously it's Vinyl Resting Place, but instead of very important person, it's like very what person, but very regular person. Very recurring.
Very recurring people. No.
Fuck. We'll get there. One of these days, someone will come and say, but that is our collective name.
I like that. Or just like vapid, relentless.
Pussy.
Sorry. The words out of my mouth, and that's 16 years. One bubble.
One
of us.
James, could you tell the people at home what your Vinyl Resting Place album is going to be? I'm excited about this one.
Yes, as am I. Not very much a resting album. No rest for this.
No rest for the wicked.
It's The Fat of the Land by the Prodigy. The reason why I picked it is I've just been really getting into my 90s bag. 90s groove recently. And I just think that it's a fantastic album that just kind of encapsulates what I deemed, or what my memory, I guess. I probably wasn't sapient for the end of the 90s, but how I picture the 90s, it's like, I think actually Matrix spills into the 2000s, but it's that cyberpunk, Matrix, you know, Mezzanine by I can't even remember
Massive
who
Attack.
it is. Massive Attack, that's the one.
100%.
Atmospheric, quite you know, you've got the
non-conforming, anti-establishment.
Shouting in your garage and putting your middle finger up to your parents type situation. You've got like
the chain, the wallet chain,
that horrible Velcro sound.
Of your Arsenal wallet.
And then just all the coins falling out on the floor and in KFC. That's actually happened to me quite a few times. To be fair, too many to count. But yeah, look, it's a good album in my opinion. I think that a lot of the songs that they've got on that album and previous albums are still very relevant today. I was actually listening to some of their other stuff on the way up here, and it was actually songs that, you know, were mixed into various different versions that we heard together at Lost Village.
Yes.
And I don't think that sort of scene will ever die. But I think what the Prodigy do slightly differently, or in my opinion better than like the Chemical Brothers, for example, is they kind of have a wider scope. They take more influences from different types of sounds and types of genres and movements, etc. So you've got quite a grungy feel. There's like an electro pop feel. There's some you know, in their earlier stuff, in Experience, it's hip hoppy, but in Experience and Music for the Jilted Generation, it's quite jungly. And the reason why I picked The Fat of the Land over the other two was that the first album, 1992 Experience, has a lot of good songs on it, but as an album from A to B or A to Z, real lack of cohesion. The music's not very well refined. It was, you know, I think their debut album. It was still very raw in terms of jamming out in your garage with, like, you know, stolen or secondhand or semi-broken equipment. It does sound like it was recorded in their garage, but they're moving into the 1994 Music for the Jilted Generation. Much more cohesive, much more refined, but quite singular, almost too refined. A lot of it is just like it's speed techno and jungle, and that's really cool. And it's very much like a production album. Not actually making music, you know, writing their own lyrics, which is actually a point I want to make in The Fat of the Land, talking about the lyrics. But they started to do that in The Fat of the Land and actually kind of make music as opposed to chop and sample other songs and just add ridiculously quick and heavy drums over it.
I think Fat of the Land, sorry to interject, is for me the sound of Prodigy. Like it is what I associate with them, and it is, I think, where they may be overcorrected for Music of the Jilted Generation. It's where they then brought themselves back to a medium of, okay, this is what we are as an entity. And I think, not that it's a bad thing. Like Music for a Jilted Generation is a very good album. Like, there's not an issue with the overcorrection. But I think when you've come from doing things so like slapdash and like you're being forced to make things a certain way because you literally have no other option. You then get some traction and movement, then you go too far to make things like clean and pristine and make this, like you say, a production album. You lose a little bit of the identity, and this is Fat of the Land is I think even more so than maybe Experience as a debut, like a coming out party for like this. Like if you want to know what the Prodigy is, this is it. With the later albums, like there is always that same, I don't know, root that you can hear throughout their later music. Like this is where it's come from, and this is what we are.
I mean, like, to further that, with Experience you have a lot of great influences which they've clearly drawn from, and a lot of good different sounds, but it's almost like fragmented in one song is in this style and one song is in this style and one song is this style. Whereas with the Fat of the Land, each song encompasses a flavour of each of their influences. So instead of going from quite a grungy song straight into a jungle song, and then, you know, moving into more of a hip hop song, it's you've got a grungy guitar with hip hop lyrics over a jungle beat, and it's just actually kind of encompasses it. And you're right that they did try, and there is a sense of overcorrection from experience into Jilted Generation, but then they've kind of overcorrected or managed to adjust their correction, go back to their roots, but still have the refined sense of the 94 album, but with the rawness of the 92. So yeah, and also, you know, we can speak very technically and theoretically. Like, it's just got some
fucking slaps,
fantastic
mate.
tunes
It
on
just
it.
fucking slaps.
It really does. And I actually want to bring this up as well, because I was listening on the way up here as well, because I had a 2-hour journey.
It's not my fault. You used to live here.
Yeah, it's literally was spitting distance. And then,
and now I chose to invite you on.
To save some bastard rent. Yeah, I know. God, careful what you wish for, guys. I was listening to your episode with Alex Lixie, and getting into the whole bop banger debate.
Okay, talk to me.
And I was very much of the opinion, as my journey started, that I agree with what you both said, and I think that bops and bangers are different things. But I was going to say that actually all bops are bangers, but not all bangers are bops. Like to use your Adele example, like, you know, Rolling in the Deep, or any of these, you know, slower ballad love songs. Bangers aren't bops.
Yeah, okay.
But if I like a song and it's a bop, then I'd consider it a banger. Having said that, though, listening to this album again, a few bangers, but all of them are bops. All of the songs on there are bops, but some of them I'm just like, because it's dance music. A lot of it is stuff that's very similar. You know, I think banger needs to have that sort of standout element.
I think I use the word banger very much for how a song makes me feel. Like, if a song hits me in the face and I'm like, shit, I'll be like, oh, that's a banger. And I often say it, arguably too much, be like, oh, this fucking bangs. But if something, like, there will be a bop that I don't necessarily like. Do you know what I mean? So like a bop, like, I can understand because it makes you move, and it has that sort of like danceable element to it. But then I might not necessarily think it's like an amazing song. Whereas I think every song that I think is a banger is like, for its genre and for its thing, is top tier. And that is this whole album potentially. So I have a point for this album, and this is because I'm back in my rave era. Like, I'm seeing, I was at Barry Can't Swim last week, which was like the intro. Got Fatboy Slim at the end of the month at Drum Sheds.
That'd be good.
Then I've got Barry Can't Swim's Warehouse Project at the end of the month as well.
What, in
Manchester? The one with Interplanetary Criminal,
Joy
Orbison, Jotty, Salute. It's stupid. It is stupid.
At least you had a quiet summer.
It's Lost Village's fault, because I was like, I enjoy raving. I would have danced on a car to Dan Shake for 6 hours. I want that in my life, and I can only do this for a set number of years more. And everything that you're saying about kind of like the grungy nature of this album appeals to that inner raver of me. And I think I'm interested to know your take on this, because I think there's always, when things are a little bit murkier and grungy and they're very like anti-establishment, there is an element of like rebelling against something. And I never really could relate to that as like a child, because I was, one, not a super rebellious child, and two, like, lived a fairly nice life. Like, there weren't super like massive constraints against me. As I've become an adult and I'm like going about daily life, and I'm feeling like I'm trying to understand like what I want to do with life, and everyone's going through their quarter life crisis, I really, really understand, and I've got a big affinity to, whether it be dance music. I'm getting into a lot more rock. I'm getting into a lot more like dub, and I'm getting into like anything that I feel is breaking a mold. I think what people are rebelling against, and what I kind of love about this style of music, and why I'm so glad you put this album on, is like the general malaise of fucking life. Like it's so easy just to sit into the fucking like monotony and like this is what we do and this is why we're doing it, and because like everybody says that you've got to go on this path and do the thing that everybody else is doing around you and be the cog in the machine and have the family, kids, and do that. And not to say that any of those things are bad, but like if you're not careful, you sort of sleepwalk on this conveyor belt through life, and you've missed 15 years of your life. And albums like this, or one of the big ones for me at the moment, I was literally just speaking about on another episode, Kneecap is really spoken to me. Over Mono's Good Lies has really spoken to me. Like it's like, actually shut the fuck up. What do you want? What do I as an individual right now want to do, and why aren't I doing it? And really truly fuck what anybody else says. And that sentiment is one of the most powerful things for me right now. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, look, there's nothing wrong actually. It's quite highly sought after. A lot of people would want this, is to have like a stable job, and a relatively kind of stress-free life, which is nice a lot of the time. But there seems to be, I just think that the way we've been brought up, kind of to aim for stable life, stable job, all of this. I think that worked for a lot of people, particularly our parents' generation, which is where you go to school, you work hard, you get a good job, you work hard, and then you can have your 2 or 3 weeks every summer holiday. And I just think that for a lot of people like us, whether attitudes have shifted, whether you've got social media where you can see people who've got more money than you, better looking than you, well, not you, but better looking than others. They've got like you better invite me back on now.
You call me ugly.
No, not better looking than you. You're devilishly handsome, Dapo.
Nice.
But like, I think that also plays a part of it. There's always someone doing better than you, and a lot of the time, especially for myself, I have this inner, I just want to fuck it all off.
Yeah, 100%.
And while completely in a high level, intelligent, articulate way, yes, these albums can speak to you like that, but also actually going and listening to the music in the setting that it's supposed to be listened to in, i.e. at a rave or at a festival or at a house party where you can just completely let go and dance and have a good time. And you know, if you're not rebelling against it, at least you're escaping it for that short period of time. And yeah, I just think that it's very bizarre because a lot of these albums are supposed to be aimed for very young 18, 19, 20-year-olds, childlike type of people. But actually, when you do hit that sort of quarter-life crisis, like you said, it kind of speaks to people a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. I like the point that you made about like listening to things in their element. At We Out Here, K Tempest, he did a set on the main stage Sunday afternoon, like golden hour, and as well as bars and musicality being great, like he put on a really, really good show. Being the poet and like philosopher and creative that he is, like did a lot of like speeches, and there was a bit about the trans community. It was quite touching. There was a bit about kind of love and heartbreak and all those sorts of things. And then to kind of close the set, he starts talking about how special it is to be at the festival and to be in a space where for 4 days, like nothing else matters. Like nothing. Like you are as you want to be. You're doing as much or as little as you want. You are enjoying something that you have a passion about. You're seeing people express themselves on stage. You're being touched by talent. You're being touched by like the beauty of music, and like you should all just feel very lucky and appreciative of what you've got now. It's Sunday. We've got one last evening of this. Fuck tomorrow. Doesn't matter what's coming. Like whatever you've got to go home to, it will be okay. Enjoy right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I feel quite emotional about this.
Yeah, that's really profound.
Turn around, the whole audience is in tears.
Oh,
in
really?
Bits. Like people are broken, and it just goes to show like everybody's harboring this stuff. Like everyone's got their own shit, and having something to like like you say, have a little bit of a cathartic release, like something to just get through that, and then it give you the ability to go and tackle whatever you need to do again.
Yeah.
It's so valuable, and like for me, it just happens to be the heavier, darky, murky side of it. Like it's like the meme where me going on my way to my 9 to 5 job, listening to fucking Clavish, talking about stacking bricks. Like it's the same thing for me. Whereas me, I'm just like sat on the tube reading my book, but listening to fucking smack my bitch up. and it gets through the day.
No, it's a very touching way of basically putting that going to a field with your mates, doing God knows what, getting up to God knows what, and listening to God knows what is really it's gratifying. And I think that for my experiences this summer, I did Glastonbury and Lost Village.
Wait, you went to Glastonbury?
Yes, with the broken foot as well. Haven't mentioned that before. Like the 3-month build up to that, the excitement of going to that festival alone was enough to get me through that 3-month period of wake up, work, eat, sleep, and then coming off the back of that, even though I felt horrible for about a week, the kind of afterglow effect and just how grateful I was for being able to not only have the experience it, but share that experience with some of my nearest and dearest as well, was really nice.
I hear it.
I just don't know if like you said, we're kind of getting not getting on a bit, but
we are, mate. I've got 3 good years left. Hit 27, I've got 3 good years left. What I do, I'm not saying that I stop at 30, but like I know that I can't keep going at this pace.
Of course not.
I physically can't. But then, whatever happens from 30, it will be a slowed down, toned down version. I've got 3 years where give it a good go, and then the knees are shot.
If they're not already.
If they're not already.
It's like when you see slightly older people. So it's like 2 types of kind of old ravers. You've got the older people that you see maybe at like your Glastonburys or was it We Out Here?
We Out Here is very much that vibe.
Clearly still very into their music. I'm actually just there going for the music and appreciation. Maybe to spend some time away. They probably won't see that
much. They'll do a lot of their well-being,
the day
stuff.
activities. But then there's the other set of old rave heads where it's just like, I am happy for you, and I think what you're doing is class.
Love it for you.
But I am scared. Like,
I think the thing is, it can't. That could never be me. Like, as much as I love it, and they're always, not always, 90% of the time, the happiest people in the room.
Yeah.
They're just gassed to be there. But like, God, aren't you tired? It's a lot. Like I'm sat here at 27. Obviously, we do stuff, we get stuff out, but like I am a couple days after Lost Village, I was a broken man. I was a broken man. Like it took me, and I did We Out Here into Lost Village, and We Out Here was fairly chilled, but I was on my last legs.
We all were.
Even Waterworks took it out of me.
Waterworks was the pre's and the afters were kind of what I actually enjoyed most. Like the actual, I think, because I went into it with such a Lost Village mindset.
Yeah, the setup they've got, the stage design is sick. I love the idea of no headliners. It's all just B2Bs. I think that's a really sick way of just getting people in the dance for it. But the stages are not well set out. You don't know where you are at any point in time. It feels too big. You're always losing people. We lost each other for like a couple hours. And it's a bit too chaotic for me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where it's trying to be, instead of a day festival, it's trying to be a 4-day festival all in one go.
Yeah.
And like I'm glad that they've got loads on and there's like loads to do.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is just too much.
It's too much.
And despite the stages being way closer together than they were at Lost Village, I think actually having them that close together, it's just like, do 2 minutes in this stage, not really feeling it, let's walk to another, and actually you just spend the whole day walking. At least with slightly larger festivals, yes, it's a nightmare getting to them, but because you do that, once you're there, unless it's actual utter crap, which is not going to be because you pre-plan it, but if you get there and you're like, you know what, let's give this a bit, and it's actually much better to kind of be forced to stick to your guns a bit there.
Because like I am a bit of a dictator when it comes to festivals. I like to know who I'm seeing when I'm seeing them. I couldn't tell you, apart from Interplanetary Criminal at the end.
Right at the end, yeah.
I couldn't tell you a single person that we saw. I had a list of people I wanted to see. Beatty, I wanted to see Breaker.
Yeah.
All these people I wanted to see. Couldn't tell you what they were. They couldn't tell you where the stages were that they were playing. Couldn't tell you when I was at that stage. It was just a nightmare. But good fun nonetheless.
I mean, you couldn't plan for the number of fit blondes that were going to just pull us here, there, and everywhere. The Tillies and the Minties and the Binkies. Yeah. I really want to see this DJ. No, I don't want to see him. You know what? I didn't want to see him anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really, really interested in where you want to go.
Yeah,
really interested.
Yeah, suddenly, tell me more.
Tell me more. Tell me more about Daddy's Money. Should we chat about Fat of the Lamb?
Yes.
What is your I'm intrigued by this because I have actually a few takes as to what could be the answer to this question. What is the best song on this album?
So, it's like it's tough, right? Okay, so my original answer is brilliant. I have listened to it, I promise. My original answer was "Smack My Bitch Up," and I am going to stick with that. But obviously, "Breathe," "Firestarter," they're bangers.
They're bangers. Anthems.
I also really like "Diesel Power." It's kind of a bit slower, a bit more hip hoppy. It almost has a bit of a, if Tribe Called Quest wore jorts type feel to it.
Do you know what I would? It gives me Public Enemy.
Yeah,
it gives me Public Enemy.
It is that kind of early rap where it's still got boom bap drum beat, but it's still just kind of in the afterglow or the twilight period of kind of rock, where a lot of early 80s hip hop still had quite a heavy focus on traditional rock and roll instruments, guitars, bass guitar, etc. So yeah, I think that that's a fantastic shout. A few others on there. I mean, Funky Shit's a good one as well. But yes, I just think Smack My Bitch Up.
As far as an intro goes, as like a first song, so we say it all the time on the podcast. Intro, outro have to slap. Like if you've got a 9 out of 10 album, something that will take it to a 9.9. Like the difference for me, not always, but it's not. There's a good correlation between a good album that starts strong and ends strong, and then a good album where it's just a bit disjointed, and the last song, the last like 2 tracks, I'm just a bit checked out. Smack My Bitch Up lets you know exactly what you're going to get. Prepare yourself for the next like 40 minutes of your life because you're gonna be up for it. It is also a tune. Like, it slaps. I would have gone Diesel Power. I think Diesel Power is like, it's the most well constructed song, and maybe that's because I'm a hip hop head, but I feel like Diesel Power as a song is like, it's the most listenable track, and that's because everything else is very like abrasive and heavy, and not to say that I dislike them. I also want to give a shout out to Serial Thriller. I think Serial Thriller is a stonker.
They're all like great in their own right, but I completely agree. I think what I've taken from that is, for people that don't like the Prodigy, if you had to give them one song to listen to introduce them slowly, it would be Diesel Power. Yeah. It's like you said, the most listenable song on the album, and actually in probably out of almost all of their songs. But yeah, I like starting with Smack My Bitch Up. It's like, I mean, I think that just kind of embodies who they are. Yeah, it's like, we're not going to ease you into this. We're going to be in your. It's hit them from the first minute. If it was a song, let them know you're there, boys.
Facts. A little cruncher.
Yeah,
it's so true. I fucking adore this album, so I'm not even going to ask the question if it's a good album, because I think we both agree that it is.
So again, this is something that I've been tossing and turning over, because not while this plays. Could you imagine taking a girl back? Let me slip something sexy on. Smack my bitch up. She's gonna ask for an angel shot and call the police.
Call Angela.
She's not. She's gonna run for the hills. But I think that yes, it is. you know, it's a tough one. Well, obviously, right, because is it a good album? Yes, it's great technically in terms of the sampling, the chopping, the evolution of their sound, where they've managed to get it just nailed on for the whole album. I think that's fantastic. You know, with the average person, they probably think that this is trash, it's noise, and they would say, I don't think this is music. If you asked, you know, 40-year-old Sue from HR, first of all, you know, if she gets intro to Smack My Bitch Up, you're getting put on probation again.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think it's like, I think it's fantastic, and I think, you know, take the whole, it's really good to dance to, it's good to, you know, have a good time to. I just think actually musically it is great. Are the band or group talented in a traditional music sense? No, they don't have. You know, when I'm saying in a traditional sense, I'm talking about a 4 or 5 person band. They all have an instrument that they master. But that's kind of what this whole 90s era was about. It was moving away from analog and into a digital era, even though a lot of the equipment was still very analog, but actually being able to warp sounds and create new sounds, which a lot of people who'd already grown up by that point would probably say that it's not. It's like young heathen din. But yeah, I mean,
that's an interesting take with the instruments bit. I had to double check that Keith Flint was like, he was featured as just as a dancer.
He's just like a front man.
Which I do find quite interesting. I don't think I agree. I don't think I agree about them not being talented in a musical way. How do I put this politely? I think if people listen to this and they don't see that there is an element of musicality behind it, they're being either obtuse and lazy or they're dumb. It's like, for me, yes, there is a lot of noise to it. There is a lot of din to it. It is abrasive. It is, but then in the same way that people can turn their nose up to like freeform jazz, or even not even that like far out, but more experimental jazz or heavy metal or forms of rap that is like, I mean, sometimes I'm guilty of it as well, but like mumble rap, like there are some mumble rappers that have a deep level of musicality behind it. There are some heavy metal bands that have a deep level of like intricate musicality behind it, even if it's not coming from a trained point of view. Especially in this album, I think if we were to say for experience, I'd probably lean to agree with you a little bit more.
Yes.
But especially in this album, like they have put together good pieces of music that just the start that it just so happens to be this brash, loud style. That doesn't, just because it's not easy listening, shouldn't diminish the quality of it.
No, you're absolutely right. I agree. And then, like, you know, if you're boiling down to what is good music or is something good musically, if you can determine that, or if you can define that, or if you can make that definition by translating a sentiment, a movement, a feel, a vibe into something that you can listen to and it can be understood, then yes, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, it's fantastic musically. Like we were saying earlier, for me that kind of encases the late 1990s youth, right? 18 to 25. I mean, like, imagine being like 18, 19 when this came out.
God, I'd lose my mind.
It would be, it
would have been a dangerous time.
I would be that 40-year-old guy at Lost Village, you know what I mean? If that was 100%. Like at its precipice and I was just turning 18, 19, I probably would have struggled to kind of move on from that era a lot.
Fall off the tracks.
Yeah.
I want to delve into like the piece about like the 90s and what that feel is. Obviously we are the back end of 90s babies, technically Gen Z. I know it doesn't really make sense, but this kind of where like the zillennials term.
Yeah.
Which also makes you feel a bit fucking nauseous, but
Zillennial is such a Gen Z thing to say.
It's just gross, man. Yeah. But like, the 90s, I would say music wise, I still have a big like nostalgic draw to it, even though it's not necessarily the nostalgia from like my immediate experience, but it shaped a lot of the culture that then existed as we were growing up. You, as you were going through like your prep for the episode, you listed quite a few albums from the 90s. I think you said had the Beastie Boys in there, you had Biggie, you had Massive Attack.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the 90s was a better era of music, or do you feel like we are nostalgia merchants?
I think that there's an element of both, right? I think that like if you look at the best artists that came out between 2010 and 2020, right? Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, saying something like Adele might be a bit insulting to some of her earlier work potentially, but so you've got these, you know, I'm talking about the Adeles of the work, you know, I guess the Beyoncés again, kind of, you know, slightly earlier again, but two amazing people and have produced some incredible music. But I think that from 1990 to 2000, there is a bigger number of and a wider variety of fantastic artists than there was from 2010 to 2020. Now, I don't know if that was like an anomaly decade we've had, but I just think that a lot of the focus towards the late 90s was the corporatization. I don't really know how to... You know, the loss of sense and, you know, the massive focus on record labels and, you know, like Nirvana's whole thing was being picked up, hating it, you know, had to go on to the BBC and do a set, and they got told that they had to lip sync and they weren't allowed to swear and all of this stuff, and they hated that. And I think just kind of at the turn of the millennium, pushing more into the digital era, more of a footprint. I think that people, you know, corporations wanted to have like a kind of cleaner aesthetic, and then that's where you get a lot of industry plants. That's where you get a lot of crap music that was just being pushed out by labels, a lack of personality coming through. So I think the 90s was kind of like the last hurrah. You had the 70s, which was like what I call the prep rebellion. So you had like LSD, and it was like quite a hippie rebellion phase, but it was incredibly peaceful, incredibly acoustic, very sort of preppy, nerdy rebellion. And then I think that the 90s, you know, your Oasis, your Blur, Prodigy, you know, Massive Attack, Beastie Boys, massive rise of hip hop, which, you know, early hip hop still quite preppy. A lot of the bars
they're fucking Sugar Hill gang.
A lot of the bars now, if you played to late 90s, early 2000s rappers, they'd be like, this is kind of whack. This is some nerdy
for sure
stuff. So I think the 90s was like one last hurrah. I think it just works in terms of like number format as well. Like, it's the last decade of the 1900s.
Everyone thought the world was going to end.
Everyone thought the world was going to end, and to be fair, it has been downhill since then.
It's just a slow decline. It's interesting. I actually had a thought, and I now agree with your thought, because I was going to say that we're nostalgia merchants. I was going to say that realistically, there's good music at all periods of time, and then that is a fact, right? But when you're in a moment, it's very difficult to like have appreciation for that moment, because you're watching it happen live in front of you. You're a direct and an immediate critic of that thing, and that piece of work doesn't even get to a second to breathe, because especially in the digital age, you've got dickheads like us being like, don't like this, don't like that, don't like that. But I think what you're saying about like the nature of the time and corporatization of like the music industry and the world in general, and things becoming more digital and becoming more mechanized and becoming a lot more like clean cut. Everybody was looking towards the future. Meant that what the root and the thing that people were pushing back against was something that was very real and very apparent, and there was a lot more music that stood for something, for want of a better word, and that goes hand in hand with those people being super talented, super passionate about their art. They were doing whatever it took. Like if we take the hip hop examples, they were fucking boxing up cassettes for their and pushing them around in fucking shopping trolleys, trying to shot them out. Like that was the only way to get your music out. That was the only way you were going to get DJs to play it. That was the only way you were going to get on radio, and that was it. Like there wasn't the opportunity to like pitch your music in the way that you can now, and what was coming to the fore and what was becoming popular was the sound of quote unquote the people. Like it was this guy started on XYZ Street and he was just rapping on the corner. He was doing ciphers in the park. This band were literally playing open mic nights, and those things still go on, but now it is more of, okay, we're doing that to get a label deal so we can go and get played on Radio 1. In modern times, we're doing that so we can get a following on social media. So it's not necessarily the voice of people aren't moving with their feet. It's the industry sort of cherry picking.
Yeah. I think nowadays, if you're up and coming, you're not trying to get noticed by the people. You're trying to get noticed by a label,
by the industry.
Or if you are trying to get noticed by people, it's so that enough people notice you, and then that puts pressure on a label to then try and sign you. So it's kind of the end goal, right, depending on who you're actually trying to be noticed by, is the same thing, is to be picked up so that you can not just get the advance to actually record more music, but it's then the whole pushing everything out.
Which is not, and I don't think we should caveat this by saying that that's not like a slight on what the industry is now.
No.
Like, I think it just, when you look at the artists that like have a wide global reach, and especially in the 90s as well, where it was inherently more difficult to be known around the world than it is now. Like it's just a fact. Like the range of music that was creating superstars, and the star, even within genres, the style that was coming to the fore was so varied. Like you were getting artists that were not that you how do I describe it? They were just they were different from anyone around them, and they had a persona, and they had a style, and they had a brand that was unlike anybody around them, and they could all coexist in their spaces. Whereas now, you get so many carbon copies of each other. You get so many cookie cutter artists or people that are taking bits from here and there, and like the originality is less.
In terms of, that loss of personality, I think that, like you said, it's not anyone's real fault. It's just kind of the way it is. But, there's two things here, right? Like you're saying, global recognition is kind of like a must now. Back in the day, if you were massive regionally or relatively well-known nationally, the way that the artists were getting money through album sales was enough to support you and have a good life and continue to grow. Nowadays, you don't sell albums, right? Most people's income comes from streaming pays, which pays very little. So unless you're getting those 100 million plus plays, you're not making big money.
No, you're not making money.
And I think that, once you do have an open market, it's great to get your music out there, but then the market gets flooded, and actually you can have people from different countries listening to your music, but are they also just having so much other music shoved down their throats that they can't? And the second point about the personality is, nowadays it's unbelievably common. I think, from 2005-6 onwards, pretty much, like Bruno Mars was actually fantastic for this and built an entire career before his own music was just writing songs for other people. Very, very uncommon. You would, in a band, definitely, maybe not for solo artists, it's different, but in a band, Oasis for example, you would have Noel, who would write all the music, and you would have someone within your band that would do the lyric writing. You'd have another one that would be stage presence and performance. The other members would be there. Musically, they would then write their own songs. They would chop and change things musically. Nowadays, you have songwriters who then just give their work to labels, and labels just go to artists. You will have the artist then perform it. You'll have another group of people who will actually play the backing music. Then you'll have a mixer, and then you'll have a producer, and then that will go to an editor who will then like cut bits out or chop and change whatever. At the end of the day, something that's been put out by a Taylor Swift or a Billie Eilish or something like that, is that actually one of their songs, or is it like 10 different heads? You know, and the more, you know, too many cooks spoil the broth. Not to say that what they're pumping out is bad. It's just, it's very, this thing seems to work for the industry, and this seems, you know, to be getting good views, good plays. Let's try this again with this artist, and let's have this guy back on to do this. And
I think you're bang on right. I think actually Eyelash is a good example of somebody who broke the mold a little bit. Like her first album, because I know that she wrote it was her and her brother, and they wrote it together. And like, it's not my favorite of her albums, but Barney was saying this recently. Like, it is so highly regarded because it's in that pop space, but there wasn't anything like it, and it boils back to that individual personality point of view, where it's like, this wasn't a project that was manufactured and made to fit a specific market or to boost sales or anything like that. This was a writing duo. Obviously they have their relationship as a brother and sister, but like a pair of creative who've gone away, created the thing, been like, here it is. If this is what you have, it, if you like it, great. If you don't like it, it's fine. This is what it is. And I think that is, in essence, what is kind of being phased out, is being able to go away as a collective, as a band, as an artist, as a solo person, to create something of your own.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't have something new or individual without that personality, right? If you have no personality, there's absolutely no way that you can make something cool and original. I mean, like, look for example, I know it's, you know, it's different because it's pop, and the whole idea is that it's popular music and that everything sounds quite similar, but take any Dua Lipa song and tell me that, you know, Katy Perry couldn't have performed that. And that you wouldn't have, would it be much of a different song? I think that, you know, that's quite a harsh and extreme example, because Katy Perry and Dua Lipa are kind of, for me, just like what I would, if someone says name a pop artist, it would be that, because that's like kind of, you know, at the centre. A lot of different pop artists have their own flair and stuff, but I just think that there was no room for making music like that 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, I actually do agree. I've recently come to accept that, like, pop is back and pop is good. But then you look at old pop, like Madonna made bangers. Madonna made bangers, and she was probably as in the machine of the music industry as anybody was at that point in time and go through. But like, early Madonna was, and regardless of like what the process to get there was, and I'm sure that it was more along the lines of a modern day pop star than fucking the Prodigy was. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But the sound was like a prayer is anthemic. It's spiritual in nature, and it's so much more anthemic than the songs that we get today, or like,
and never successfully recreated, or, you know.
Exactly.
You know,
there's not a
Dua Lipa's got bangers, right? But like, songs that she's made have been done very similarly before her and after
and
her,
will be made after. And like, I will take like a Prince or something, Prince made songs that would just never be recreated, and I would stand on the hill and die on it to say that that's pop music. That is pop at its purest form. But there's an interest, there's a individuality, there's some zhuzh about it. Do you know what I
I
mean?
mean, even like the very standard run of the mill production line, like girl bands from the early noughties, you know, the Sugar Babes, Girls Aloud.
Yeah.
Like, if I actually really think about it, obviously they're all way more talented than I am.
I know you're pretty talented, bro.
Try and get them to get on the cold calls, but I think that, like, you know, not to boil it down too much or to kind of throw shade on them, but very much like early industry, sex sells, a group of 4 very attractive girls who, you know, can sing, which is obviously a plus, but probably not a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Even back then in the early stages, still had a defined sound, and also produced some bangers. I would go as far to say that the top 5 Girls Aloud songs or Pussycat Dolls songs probably beat, in my opinion, the top 5 Dua Lipa songs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything.
Yeah, mate.
Dua
Sound
Lipa's
of the Underground was an absolute banger.
It still is to this day.
Sound of the Underground, bop or banger?
Oh.
That's the
I think that it's what
we're gonna round this episode off with a game.
Okay, bop or banger. Okay,
we're gonna make bop or banger.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
See, I think that's a really tough one, because if you're going like banger in terms of global reach and, you know, kind of summarizes an entire year of music, I'd probably say no. I think it's a bop, but it's a fucking good bop.
It's a good bop. I think agreed. Because I said the word banger immediately, but it's not.
I would describe it as a banger, but it doesn't go into the banger category. I think that's me kind of just gassing it up slightly. But it's a serious bop. Like, it's a bop of the highest order.
Yeah.
It's a bop like with an OBE. Yeah, exactly. It's an honorary banger. Yeah.
Facts. Okay, all right. Let's play bop or banger. Okay. So, Sound of the Underground is a bop. Sorted. Hey Ya, Outcast, bop or banger?